So in the last video, I finally got the brakes working, and now the next step before I drive on the highway is I gotta get all the electricals working. If you remember, the headlights weren't working, running lights weren't working, turn signals weren't working. So in this video, I'm gonna diagnose all the 12-volt electrical stuff and start putting the dash back together to get close to its final look. So I feel like an idiot yet again, because all I had to do was flip this lights switch down. And now you can see the headlights are working. High beams and low beams. The brake running light works. The brake stop light, when you step on the pedal, does not work. This marker works. License plate lights work. This marker light works. This works. This does not. I'll check that for a blown bulb. And the turn signal doesn't work, so I gotta look into that. I got the side turn light working just by pressing this black wire in. I'm glad I went and labeled all these earlier for side turn. There wasn't a good connection on the ground there. So for diagnosing the brake lights not working, first thing I went to check was the brake light switch right there by the tip of my finger. There's two wires coming out of that which I've probed with my multimeter, and when the brake pedal presses to activate and turn off that switch. So I've got my multimeter here. It's OL, so it's not connected. Then when I'm going to push on the pedal with my hand, 0 ohms, so it is connected. So that switch is working properly. And then I'm checking the wiring diagram here. This is that switch, and so the one wire coming out of it goes to the washer fluid pump. So then I went to go check the washer fluid pump, which is right here, and I don't have that connected at all. So hopefully that's why my brake lights aren't working. And I've now got those two wires connected to the pump here. There's two more coming off the same cable that passes through the right side here. These two I checked, and these are for the heater, which I no longer have, but maybe I'll want to use those in the future. I'm going to diagnose the turn signals not working, and in the manual it says, if there's no operation in the fuse's sound as indicated by the brake stop lamps working. Well, my brake stop lamps aren't working, so those are on the same fuse, the turn signals and the brake, so it could be same problem causing both things, so I'll check that fuse first. I checked the fuses here. They all look fine, so now I'm going to start checking wiring. Going off the diagram again, I know it's a green and a green-purple wire over here that control the brake light. And so I just disconnected the green-purple and then reconnected it, and now the brake lights work, so it's probably just a bad connection. I shorted the turn signal flasher, so now when the turn signal is to the right, this one turns on. When I flip it to the left, this one does not, so I'm going to check the wiring on this also. Same thing happens here. The right side brightens with right turn. The left side does not brighten. Now going off the wiring diagram, the 72 is the left rear turn signal. 53 is the front left. That's green. That's green. They both turn to a green-red. And they both meet here at the flasher stalk at the switch at the driver's seat. So I'm going to check there and see if I've got voltage there. Maybe that's the culprit. No voltage at the green-red wire here at the turn signal stalk, which when I hit the turn signal, this contacts that brown pad to the left. Ooh, I see some flashing there. That's certainly voltage. And now it works. I have no idea why it decides to work now. You can see it there on that stool. That is so weird. I don't get it. Maybe I just had to cycle this switch a few times to get the connection fresh. I don't know. I had the flasher relay shorted before, just with the jumper wire. Now I put the flasher back in. It's flashing up there. It's flashing up there. I don't know what I did, but it works now. Maybe that's just the way these Lucas wiring harnesses are. You just move them a little and all of a sudden they work. I don't know. Either way, I'm psyched. Everything is working now. The windshield wiper motor also wasn't working, so I reached in there, disconnected the connector, reconnected it, and I think you can guess, now they work. So it seems to be a common fix on this car, is just unplug it, replug it, it works. But now the turn signals aren't working, so I gotta figure out what's going on there. So I found the correlation is when I put this hazard switch on, the turn signals don't work at all. I'm not sure it's because it's an issue with this hazard relay. I went ahead and shorted it and the same thing happens. So when I flip the hazard switch back off, and then I've flipped the turn signal works again. So there's some issue with the hazard switch circuit. I'm not sure I really care that much. The turn signals work. The hazard flasher is working as small potatoes at this point. So now the turn signals are still working. The running brake lights don't work, but when I step on the brake lights, they do work. Up front, turn signals work, headlights don't. So I started probing around, and this is the headlight switch. Up here I'm getting 12 volts, and then regardless of what position this switch is in, neither of these are getting 12 volts. So I think this switch has failed, and that's the cause of my problems. So I will get an alternate switch and see if I can fix that. And so to test it, I've jumpered onto the positive of the 12 volt. That's what this is hooked up to, and if I bypass the switch itself, you can see the headlights turned on. You can hear the DC to DC converter. Now I'm going to let go. Headlights are off. So I know the wiring's good. It's the switch that's bad. I've rewired the light switch with 2 switches now, so it's a little bit chaotic here. But this switch, feeding into it, is this 12 volt power. I have that. When I flick it on, the running lights turn on, red, green. So the running lights are like the side marker lights and the one light on the brake light. So I've also got 2 little jumpers here, so I can add some other running lights if I want to on the dash later on, like for gauges and stuff like that I want to power on. That's probably what I'll do with the speedometer and the battery, 12 volt battery sensor. So with this 12 volt power, I have this other side jumpered to the other side of the switch. Then I have another jumper that runs here, and this is my headlight switch. So if the running lights aren't on, the jumper will never provide power and I'll never be able to turn the headlights on. So that's kind of by design. This gives me the ability to run the car without headlights running, because a lot of the time during the day you don't need headlights at all, so that'll help save energy. And then similarly for the headlight switch, I have, when I flick this on, headlights turn on to the original power there. Then I have 2 little jumpers here, so I can add like gauge backlighting. I can pull off of here. When the headlights are on, those will turn on. So now I need to stuff all of this dash back together. Starting to put everything into the dash, and the turn signal indicators here, they've been like snapped off, and also the bulbs are not even in the car. There's just wires left over. You can see this is what a non-snapped off one looks like. I believe this one's the bright. The bright still has the bulb, so I can put that in there. So I need to figure out how to get turn signal indicators in here. So I use this trim tool, and I pried off kind of this star washer, biting washer. And then this turn signal knocked right out through there. Like, you could reuse this. Luckily, this is exactly a 1/2 inch. So I'll show you what I got to replace. I got these LED style from Amazon. They're 1/2 inch. So they will drop right into there. And super simple. And then they have a threaded interface, so I just put a nut on the back side of here. Then I just got to connect these wires to the wires inside the car. And another dumb thing I did when I used it last was I flipped off the main high voltage switch, but I did not flip off the 12 volt switch. And so the 12 volt battery kept the LED, the wireless router, the display on, and it killed this battery. So it's a good thing, I guess, that it wasn't slowly trickling and killing the high voltage battery, but I need to pay more attention. Once the dash is together, it'll be much more obvious whether my 12 volt is on or off. I'm not going to drive it for a few days. So I recharged this back up to 12 volts. We'll see how well it holds. Maybe I need to put a new battery in there. The passenger side view mirror here is all wobbly. Let's see if I can fix it. So to get this mirror off, there's this set screw there that kind of pushes against the dovetail. It kind of was seized on there. You actually have to slide it forward and then up to get it off the dovetail there. So that's a little confusing, but you do not have to take this post off to get the mirror off. And now I'm slowly peeling back this lining. I think there's a spring behind the mirror, so I'm not going to let it go flying. So to get this apart, I had to use a pick to first peel out this plastic part. And then there's a massive spring behind the mirror, so you got to be careful to not have the mirror go flying. Then that came out, and this was attached to its stock with this like screw that's essentially compressing a spring down to make it stiff. The issue is, I think someone's been in here before and tapped this larger, and this screw is bottoming out, so I can't get it any tighter on the spring, because I need to compress the spring more to have it be stiffer and wobble less. So to fix it, I just got a longer screw, put it in, then I ran a nut all the way up to the top so that there was no tension on the spring, and I was able to start slowly running the nut down and tighten the spring, and now it's a lot stiffer. And I'm hoping it's not going to protrude through and interfere with the mirror, but we'll see that next. And now it's back on. Still a little loose, but much, much stiffer than it was before. And also the windows were getting hard to roll up and down. So I took off the door cards and lubricated the scissor slides and tried to lubricate the window tracks as best as I could. This side's a lot better. The driver's side still has a sticky portion, but it's better than it was, so I'm going to leave it. I can always come back and do more later on. The handbrake here is really only engaging at the very top of its range, and then I can still push the car and move it and overcome the brake, so the cable needs to be adjusted. So I'm under the car now at the rear axle, and what I did was, this is the adjuster nut for the handbrake cable, and so what I need to do is effectively shorten the cable. So it was already like quite shortened, so I did a couple more turns out, and now it's held on by like 2 or 3 threads, and the handbrake is working better now, so that's good. If it continues to wear, eventually I'll just have to get a whole new cable because there's not much left there holding it on. Big progress. The dash is back in, and I've wired up all the gauges. So this is still a mess, but I plan to put a panel here where these switches will sit, and I'll also have my display mounted there on the panel, and it will look clean. And also getting the speakers up there would be nice, everything up there. So on the running light switch, I have the speedometer and the 12-volt monitor turning on with that. And then on the headlight switch, I have the backlight for these two turning on. So everything's integrated, and there's still the battery cutoff kill switch there. Now the steering wheel's in, and these steering column covers are in. Starting to look like a real car. I'll probably blank these out, maybe put some logos, because this is a little ugly that you can see back through there into all the wiring. I'll probably put the fan switch that's not functional back in here just to block that. This will be motor temp sensor. That one I'll have to block out with something. Maybe I'll do the high beam indicator on here and just leave this one, pull it and move it over to here. Alright, so time to test all of it. I just flipped my battery switch on, flipped the main power switch on, and this temp sensor stays on the battery switch. I'm going to use this and keep it on rather than putting it on the key switch or the running lights, because I want this to be an additional indicator if I've left my battery on for a few days. So the next thing is I'm going to flip on my running light switch. Let's see if the dash gauges turn on. Oh, they do. GPS is turning on. Here's where I mounted the GPS, so it's got good signal through the windshield for the speedometer. I see I've got 13 volts. And now let's turn my headlight switch on and see if those backlights come on. They do. That's interesting. You could see the battery dip down to 12 volts, and I heard the DC-DC come on. It jumps back up. So that's cool. This is all working. This is all doing what I want it to. Turn signals don't seem to be working. These indicators and the actual signals on the car, so I gotta trace that down now. So I took the dash out again to diagnose the turn signals and found out that yet again I'm an idiot. You have to turn the key on for the turn signals to work. They were just fine the whole time. I just never had the key on the car on. See? Now they work. I'll flip to the right. So frustrating, but it was only an hour. I'll put the dash back in. And this is a legit car, road ready. Dash is back in again. Left indicator works. Right indicator works. Hopefully I never have to take this stuff out again. Probably the most important thing I need to do to get this highway ready is swap out the tires. This one's not bad, but it does tend to lose air. This one loses air just so fast. And then the fronts hold air. Like right here, you can see the cracking close to the rim. That means this tire is no good. They're also Sears tires. I don't think Sears even makes tires anymore, so who knows how old these are. New tires just came. And yep, I had to get the white walls, you already know. But also I learned this. Apparently these are blue, but you wash them off with soap and water and then they're white. I guess they do that for protection during manufacturing and shipping and whatnot. But these were super cheap. They're like $35 each. I'm gonna go get them mounted now. These were super cheap. They're like $35 each, so that's less than like bike tires. Let's go get them mounted now. Since I got no trunk thanks to the massive battery, I'm gonna throw them on the luggage rack. This is the first time I've ever used this. This is gonna be sweet. Fully functional, purpose-built roadster truck. First time driving with a fully functional dash and speedometer. This is awesome. I don't know if you can see it, but I went 3.2 miles and I started at 99.5, 2%. So that's over 150 mile range. Granted, it was mostly downhill and that's a small sample size with not much resolution. And I'm just finding this out now at the tire shop, but these are white walls. It's just they're on the inside. I guess the previous owner didn't like the look of it, so they put the white walls inside so you can't see them. There's the white walls. On the uphill on the way back, we got up close to 30C, but still not near the red. And I went 6.1 miles total, and I used 5% of my battery, so that's roughly 120 mile range. It is much warmer today, about 60 degrees, or I think that's like 20C. So this is awesome. That's what I wanted, above 100-mile range. All right, we're back from the tire shop. New tires, they're gonna look so good once they're white. And I swear, next video, this is gonna go on the highway, and we're gonna do a 0 to 60. Subscribe if you want to be notified and see that right away.